going as an institution. Matter of fact, this is going to be a little bit of my words for tomorrow. So we're going to be celebrating 157 years tomorrow.
157?
157, right? And so in that time period, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but part of on the program tomorrow, I will be talking about where we are. So we have a past president who's going to be showing up, who's going to talk about his era, Carl Flamer, who was president during his time period, and then we have Tracy Fleming. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then Tracy Fleming, thank you, who was the interim president before me. She will talk about her time period as president of the institution, and then I'm going to talk about where we're going, right? And I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek, which a lot of people have not seen, is really the future of Barber-Scotia College. So I always want to start off, and I was thinking about today, like, okay, how, which I'm glad that that we have this set up here. I was thinking about, how do you start off a conversation about a Barber-Scotia College, right? And what it means to the community. So first I got to take you guys back, because before you know where we're going, you got to definitely know where we've been, and that really involves the nation, right? So I think it was May of 1865 is when, May 13th to be exact, of 1865 is when the Civil War officially ended. And as you all know, throughout history, those of us who know the history of our nation, the country was in a really tough place in 1865, right? And so you had the South, who was licking its wounds from the North. You had the North, who was licking their wounds from the South, right? Brothers fighting brothers, and all of it built on the cusp of slavery and the abolishing of slavery. So fast forward just a year and a year and a half later, Barber-Scotia College is founded. Here in Concord, North Carolina.
Wow.
And it was the first institution founded in the South for newly freed African slaves, African American female slaves. Females. So it was a seminary school for only former women slaves. And so the Presbyterian Church, God bless them, Luke Dorland, who was the minister who made his way from Ohio here to Concord, North Carolina. His job was to find some land in the South to establish this new school, because he felt that was his mission, to be able to create a space where women that were just newly free from slavery would be able to be educated. And of course, in that time, education for them was knowing how to sew, knowing how to be housemakers, and do those types of things, and also know the gospel. That was their whole thing. So Reverend Dorland made his way here. He found the land, and he said, "This is the spot." Like, wow, right? I can't believe that. But it was what it was. And in January of 1867, Barber-Scotia was officially founded. It wasn't until November of 1869 that the governor officially chartered the institution. And they had been operating, and they had been gathering students and doing, laying the groundwork. And it was called just the seminary, and everybody knew about the seminary in the Concord area. Now, as I read the history of the institution, it says that Reverend Dorland, in public, the ministers of the area would say, in private, they would say, "You're doing the right thing. You're doing God's work."
Say it a little louder.
He said, they would say you're doing the right thing. In private, they would say that. You're doing the right thing. But in public, they absolutely could not demonstrate that because they were still upset from the Civil War. And
Some things don't change.
And some things don't change. And so he, of course, as he navigated the dirt roads of this area, he would find young women who were on the farm and just in the communities that were in the area and encourage them to come to Barber-Scotia College. And once the word got out, they started to come from all over the South, right? And so in 1877, the very first building was built on the campus officially. That's Graves Hall that you all see from Cabarrus, from Cabarrus Avenue.
So it's one right along.
It is right, it's one of the ones that's right along Cabarrus Avenue. So if you're facing the college, the brick colors change. So there's one that's kind of lightish, pinkish. Then there's one that's kind of darkish. The kind of darkish one is Graves Hall, and that was built in 1877. Wow. 1877, and then they added the extension of it, which everyone knows as the roof that got the big hole in it. That extension was added in 1884 because they were growing. And then in 1890, they added Faith Hall, which is the other building that's connected to the very front with the tower. And so altogether, those two buildings could house up to 700 students.
Whoa, wow.
Could house up to 700 students, bed-wise. Now, Graves Hall, because of the way that it was built, has these enormous rooms. They're like this size. And so they have multiple beds. They have like 5 and 6 beds in it, in Graves Hall. This is exactly...
Not a classroom.
Not a classroom.
Dorms.
Now, in the first phase of Graves Hall, the one that faces the street, the first phase...
I brought Barber-Scotia lady.
Oh, yay! Come on in.
Go on over
Come
and
on.
sit over there.
You guys, come on.
Yeah, come.
Miss Shasta teaches at the
Oh, really?
and that's her husband.
All right, Barber-Scotia girl?
Yes.
May I get you a glass of water, a glass of wine?
Water, please.
Don't be shy.
Say yes.
Don't be
Say
shy.
yes.
Don't be shy. So we were talking about, I was talking about Graves Hall.
Yes.
And the history of Graves Hall. And so in Graves Hall, the initial rooms were pretty decent sizes. And so, of course, I snuck over. So let me just say this, being on the campus right now, and I know that there are alumni who, they have amazing stories and they come and they share them with me about the campus, but I'm on there a lot by myself. So it's like, I'm like this kid. I have this whole campus to myself, and I know that I'm working hard to one day have a bunch of students, and I can't wait for that day. But I technically am enjoying the quiet right now as I kind of navigate around and I'm learning, right? I'm finding all these treasures, and so, so I know Graves Hall looks very scary, but I made my way into Graves Hall and went into one of the rooms. Like I said, there are some rooms that have 4 or 5 beds, that were in there, right? And so Graves Hall, then there came Faith Hall in the 1890s, and then of course, subsequently the rest of the campus, slowly but surely. Berry Hall, Cozart Hall, and then the more traditional campuses, buildings that are there. Seminary, as it was called in the late 1800s, it was really becoming a place where word of mouth is what the name of Barber-Scotia was in the wind. And that's how the population grew. But then, of course, then the Great Depression came. And many of you know what that meant for our country. And so it became very challenging for the institution. So in the 1930s, there was another seminary school in the South. And let me take it back. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a college in Atlanta called Spelman College.
Oh,
Who?
Spelman College. It's an all-girls college in Atlanta. It's called Spelman College. It was actually founded by, I think it was Rockefeller's. Rockefeller's wife maiden name was Spelman. So really, John D. Rockefeller's wife is, they're the one who funded Spelman College. And so Spelman College loves to say that they are the oldest all-girls college in the South. But it's really Barber-Scotia College. And when I tell you that there will come a time where I will regain that mantle and make sure that the story is known that it was us who established the first all-girls college in the South. They came in the 1890s. They're mere babies compared to our 1867. So moving past that time period, once the Great Depression came, and in the 1930s, there was another seminary in Alabama, in Anderson, Alabama, called Barber-Memorial Seminary School. And so, of course, the Presbyterian Church, making the decisions, business decisions that, they had now created all these colleges all over the country, but the resources were very limited. And so that's how Scotia, which was named after one of the early reverends who was from Scotland, is where Scotia actually came from. That's how we merged to become Barber-Scotia, from the seminary that was in Alabama that closed. And so, and at that time, Johnson C. Smith, that you all know, that's here in Charlotte, Johnson C. Smith was an all-males college. And so they were like our sister school that was founded also by the Presbyterian Church. And so we would share resources, we would share a lot of back and forth. And in the early books that I've read, Johnson C. Smith, or at that time Biddle College and Barber-Scotia were very, very close in that regard. So now we were an all-girls school up until the 1950s. And then in 1954, the first male came to Barber-Scotia College, right? I met an alumnus who was a part of that first class. She was a firecracker to this day. And she talked about how when the boys came and how it just really changed the dynamics of the campus. But a little fact, the first male that was on the campus was a white man. He was there for a whole year before the next class came of the first 10 black males. The first male on the campus, the first male student was a white guy.
Do we know his name?
Who was it?
I don't know. I gotta keep on searching. I'm gonna keep on searching.
Yeah.
But it was a white guy. And, but he came because he, the president at the time, they didn't tell the press. They kind of kept him hidden because they didn't want it to be news that he came to a school that used to be formerly for black girls. They wanted it to be that he came to school at Barber-Scotia. And so for a year, they kind of kept him hidden. And until eventually, so by the time the news got out and the reporters came, they said, we heard, and they said, why is this news? He's clearly been here now for 5-6 months. Why is that even important? And they were like, wow. And then he said they left, and they never ran a story about it, because it would have created a whole nother stir in 1954, right? That's, what we didn't need, right? And so throughout the history of the campus after that, there was growth that took place, but it was always challenges along the way, right? One of the things, and many of you know, is that when you think about historically black colleges and universities here in the country, you always see the stories that pop up about how many of them have been underfunded. If you're a state institution, you think about the fact that the General Assembly didn't allocate funds properly as they did to other institutions. A lot of that is because you allocate dollars to the institution that you go to, and if you're not in the room, then who is going to fight on your behalf? So you think about in the early 1900s when in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, North Carolina has 11 HBCUs.
Wow.
We have one, we're one of, in the South, we are one of the states that have the most historically black colleges in the South. Alabama, Mississippi is right up there, and then there's North Carolina. We have 11. And of the 11, 6, I believe, what is it? Elizabeth City, Fayetteville State, Central, North Carolina A&T, Winston-Salem State University are all public. I think those are the public ones. And so think about the fact that most of them were founded in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They didn't have any representatives in the General Assembly. They didn't have any graduates. And so who was going to stand in the gap for them, when the time comes for allocation of funds? They had nobody. And so therefore, for almost 100 years, over 100 years, these institutions have not received the resources that they need in order for them to be successful. And so it took individuals pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and finding whatever resources they could in order to get the colleges to continue to be operational. Because why? Because we understood that in our community, in the black community, if I'm going to go to a place that's going to teach me that I'm going to go to more than likely a HBCU. That was really the institutions that would only allow us in the early 1900s. And so our institutions were important, And so by them, but you get there and we may not have the textbooks that we need, or we may not have the chalkboard, or we may not have and so you're scrapping for resources in the community that you're in order to teach the individuals. And then you wonder how a Mary McLeod Bethune becomes who she becomes, who went to a Barber-Scotia. There are so many figures. I just learned, her name escapes me, but the first black female pharmacist in America was a Barber-Scotia grad. And it goes on and on. You think about the resources that they did not have then, but these individuals go out into the world and do extraordinary things. That's why when people say, why are HBCUs important? Because of that. Because of those types of individuals and the environment that they created. So, Barber-Scotia has had an amazing journey. Now, of course, when you get to the point where in 2004, when we lost our accreditation, there's a lot of reasons why these things happen, right? For us, as an institution, Barber-Scotia took out a federal loan. And the way that it works is that when you take out a federal loan, you got to pay it back. You got to pay it back. But to pay it back, you got to have the right business formula. Enrollment drives everything at a college. Plain and simple as that. Enrollment drives everything at a college. Well, unfortunately, we didn't have the enrollment to support not only the repayment of that, but to support the other operations of the college. And so when the SACS accreditation team comes in, they're looking at your books, they're looking at your finances, they're looking at all these, how you're delivering your instruction to the students. And unfortunately, they said, no, this is not right. Now, what's interesting, again, as I continue to read my history, the president of SACS at that time, go ahead.
Let me just say that Southern Association of Colleges and Schools.
Sorry, yes, absolutely. The accrediting body, the colleges. It was quietly said that the president at that time, in the early 2000s, was not really friendly to HBCUs. There were a couple of other HBCUs that all fell under the same situation, that lost their accreditation. Two of them, Bethune-Cookman, ironically, Bethune went, and there was another one that appealed. And they won their appeal because they argued that it was basically racist, what they were doing. For some strange reason, we didn't appeal. And I can't, I wasn't there, so I don't know what the answer is. We didn't appeal. And of course, that put us on a path for the last 20 years of where we are today, right? So fast forward to the last 20 years, we've had multiple presidents, who have come, who have attempted to lay out a vision. We came very close to accreditation when Dr. Ola was the president. And at that time, we started seeking accreditation through no longer SACS, but through another organization called TRACS. And so there are 5 various accrediting bodies that the Department of Education recognizes. That says, okay, if you are accredited through one of these, we recognize you. Dr. Ola at the time went through TRACS. It was 16 things that you have to check off, that if you meet the requirements, you're good to go. We met 15 of the 16. The piece that we missed was the financial piece, because at that time, we had a $12 million debt hanging over our head from the loan. The loan that was used to revitalize Faith Hall, which is absolutely amazing inside. It is beautiful. So they did a good job with the money. But the loan was still hanging over our head. And they
Still
don't
hanging.
No. I will say that in the last administration, because it's always politics, that $12 million was forgiven for Barber-Scotia. And so what it did is that it took that off the books for us. But it didn't mean that we didn't have other challenges, right? So, go ahead, yes, sir.
I just want to ask a question. So
Sure.
what is so the college has not been operational for years. What is the body that can afford to hire you and
Sure.
whatever? Who is
Sure.
that?
Sure.
What is that?
It's the Lord. So technically, the college has never closed in 157 years.
So it never closed.
It never closed. It has always been operational, whether there's had students or through administration. Because you could call today. I need my transcript. I need, it's never closed.
Okay.
But to your point, the body that has allowed for it to stay open is this alumni. The alumni has done an amazing job of continuing to rally around the institution. Now, it's a lot of emotion, when it comes to your school, right? And a lot of emotion. But the reality is that the alumni has done an amazing job. I'll give you an example. In fiscal year 2022 to 2023, the alumni raised in just their giving $194,000. That is what is allowed to keep the grass cut so when you drive by it doesn't look like a jungle, and to be able to address minor maintenances that the college has had, and be able to cover, the salary of the maintenance folks and so forth and so on. So that's why. That answers the question. And so after getting the $12 million forgiven, then you get to a place where now we have other challenges that we have to now start prioritizing. So the truth is that, so we have a challenge at the Concord city level. We have a challenge at the county for Cabrera's level. We have a challenge at the state of North Carolina level still, and we have a challenge at the state of North Carolina level. So there's money that's owed in all those areas right now in different capacities. So that's the first challenge, right? And then you have a infrastructure that has been crumbling for the last 20 years. So when everyone sees that big hole that's in Graves Hall that the news loves to capture, that started with a leak. Some people will come on camera and be like, so when was the fire? When did the fire take place? And I would say, no, it started with a leak. So when you think about when you don't address leaks in your life, they tend to grow. And that's what has happened with the institution over the last 20 years. There have been individuals, and I will, leadership, everything rises and falls with leadership. And there have been some tremendous folks that have really tried to take on the task of trying to move the needle for Barber-Scotia College. It's a heavy lift, but one that requires a different way of thinking. Most folks that are in higher ed approach the college like a traditional college leader. When I interviewed for the job, I said that I am not your traditional college leader. I'm a businessman who has had the good fortune to be in various spaces, whether it was in the military, whether it was being the mayor of a city, whether it was running a company, or whether it was being a senior executive at a Fortune 20 company. And that experience allows for me to see the dynamics of the Barber-Scotia's challenges a little bit different. And so we are approaching this very surgically as it relates to how the future of the institution is going to be. So the first thing you got to think of is, what is a Barber-Scotia going to look like? When you think about the challenges of HBCUs, how do we not fall back into the same trap? The beautiful thing, everyone asks me, why did you take this job? Why is it? Number one, because I feel like I have a responsibility to not allow another historically black college to close on my watch. That's why. I mean, that is exactly why I took the job. You cannot have had the experience that I've had and not be able to thank an HBCU like a Barber-Scotia. I've been able to have the amazing journey that I had because there were individuals who came through a Barber-Scotia to kick down doors for me. And so I am the recipient of all of these people that I speak of. And so here I have an opportunity to save a college and its history while then begin making sure that we create an environment for the next generation. I just want to be a part of that.
Would you tell the brief story of how you got the confirmation that this was your role?
Yeah. So, so I was watching the news one day, and I saw the story where the city of Concord had dissolved the committee that they had, the commission that they had on working with the college. That commission came about because 10 years ago, the city tore down dorms that were dilapidated. But then for 10 years, they never sent a bill to the city. The city never sent a bill to the college. But they created a commission to kind of talk through, how can we work together? Some of the leadership felt very suspicious of the city, that really it was about having a land grab. Now, the reality is, black folks, can have a level of suspicion to white folks because of our history makes that. Our history tells us that, And so the leadership didn't feel comfortable with really what the city was trying to do. So there wasn't really good communication that took place, which I believe, and I say this to my board of trustees now, I think that's where we went wrong, right? But, that was 20 years ago, and it's been 10 years ago, and it's been going like that since. So I saw the news report now. Outside of being the president of Barber-Scotia, I am the president of an international fraternity, right? So in the culture of the black culture, there is these 9 organizations called the Divine Nine, right? Historically black fraternities and sororities. 5 fraternities, 4 sororities that were all founded in the early 1900s. And I am the international president of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Phi Beta Sigma is, we have 100,000 members. We have over 600 chapters around the world. Some of the most extraordinary men have been men of Phi Beta Sigma, from John Lewis to Philip A. Randolph, who was really the architect, Huey P. Newton, the writer of the Black National Anthem, James Weldon Johnson, to Elijah Cummings, to just amazing men who have done amazing work in our community. Harry Belafonte, I love Harry. I remember when I first met him, he was like, "Oh, Brother Ray." he was so cool. And so I went to the chair of the board and I said, "Hey, president of Phi Beta Sigma, what can we do to help Barber-Scotia College? I mean, it's in my backyard. I literally live off of Mallard Creek. I'm 11 miles from the college." It's like, what can I do? And so she said, you should come to this. We're having a gala, the 1867 gala. And she said, you should come, help us, raise money. You can meet some of the folks. And she said, well, maybe maybe get on the board of trustees or get on a committee to help. And I was like, absolutely. So I walked into the building. And all of a sudden, these folks started coming up to me and saying, "Oh my God, Chris Rey, we know you. We see. Are you applying for the presidency? What? Wait, who? What? No, the presidency? No, no, absolutely not. I am not applying for the presidency of Barber-Scotia. That is not I'm here to help, do some other things. But, you know, the folks kept on coming at the gala. And so, I said, well, Lord, is this the,
Here you are.
you know? So, I woke up the next morning, and I went to the college, and I started walking around the college. And I walked around the college for almost 3 weeks, every single morning, praying if this is what I'm supposed to do. And one morning, I saw it like it was as clear as day. I saw the buildings. I saw people walking. I saw students. I saw it like it was, I just saw it. And I knew this is what I'm supposed to do. And what was even more confirmation was I had a dream, and I dreamt this.
Oh.
I dreamt this. I mean, I had a dream and I dreamt this. I don't know how it popped in my head. I don't know how it got in my dream. I went to the board chair. I said, I'll do it. I'll apply. That's what I said. I'll apply. I didn't even say yes. I said I'll apply. Because I mean, there was other people who were applying. I don't know if I'm going to get it, you know. But I knew in my heart it was going to happen because I saw it. And so, of course, eventually I went through the process, and they narrowed it down to, you know, the three of us, and they interviewed all three of us. And I walked into there with the whole plan of the future of Barber-Scotia, and walked out with a unanimous vote from the Board of Trustees to be the next president. And so here we are. But let me tell you what was the punctuation. However, whatever happened before this particular board, the board chair also had this vision,
Oh,
right? So I was rustling through, like I said, through a closet, and behind, on the floor, was this. I almost passed out. It was in a closet on the floor, but this is what I dreamt. This is what I dreamt. And so I was, of course, because it was so clear in my mind, of course I got, you know, folks that are in architects. So I was gonna just, you know, take what was in my head and bring it to life. This was on the floor, like this, in a closet. So of course I'm wrestling around, I picked it up, and I had a whole moment in the closet. I had a whole moment in the closet. And so this is in my office now because this is where I'm trying to take the college. And this represents historic Barber-Scotia. All of this is the future. All of that is the future. Whether it's new dorms, new academic buildings, a new athletic facility. And so I know where I want to take it. So I have to now reimagine what is this college going to look like. Now it's what are we going to stand for? And what is going to be our mission as an institution? So you can't be, so in the military, I was a information technology officer with a cybersecurity background. So after, you know, hanging out in Iraq and Afghanistan, I decided, I was tired of people trying to kill me. So I decided to, get out of the Army, and I called John Lewis. John Lewis was my mentor for a long time. I met John Lewis in 2003. I met him in 2003 at a conference, because he was a Sigma. He was a Phi Beta Sigma. He's a member of my fraternity. And they had told me, they said, Brother Ray, we have a VIP that we want you to, shadow and make sure he's fine. I was like, well, who is this? I can't say it. I was like, no, I got it. I mean, he's that much of a VIP, you can't even tell me who it is. It's like, you don't know. And of course, I'm ashamed to say, when I initially saw him, I was like, well, who's this guy? And then they were like, that's John Lewis. I was like, I don't know no John Lewis. I told him that he put his arm around me. And for the whole weekend that I was shadowing him, at the very end he said, young brother, you're going to run for office one day. And when you do, I'll be there. His exact words. I said, I will never run for public office. I will never do that. Of course, when I ran for mayor, 9 years later, John came and campaigned for me. And I ran for mayor 3 times. I won all 3 times. He came and campaigned for me all 3 times. Just amazing, amazing, amazing man. And so I went and worked on Capitol Hill with him for a little bit while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. So I went to Barnes & Noble one day, bought an LSAT book, and I read it for 2 weeks. Then I went and took the LSAT. And then I applied to William & Mary, and I got into William & Mary, and that's where I went to law school. While I was in law school, I was like, oh my God, I'm a broke college student again. So I said, I need to go back to the military. So I joined the National Guard. And while I was in the National Guard, they realized that I was the only National Guard member that had a IT cyber background and was studying law. So I started writing cybersecurity policy for the Department of Defense while I was in law school. The day after I graduated from law school, the next day, DOD hired me. And I was a GS-13, right out of law school, writing policy for the Department of Defense. And I wrote a white paper about how the National Guard could not augment the active duty component because we weren't ready. That white paper made itself all the way to Congress, and they ended up funding what they now have as a cyber brigade for the National Guard because of a white paper that I wrote in 2011, which is absolutely just crazy. And I got to oversee the project. And I did that before I retired 2 years ago in 2022. And in that experience, when coming here, I said, oh, we have to reimagine what a Barber-Scotia can offer. And so with my IT background, we're going to launch a school of technology that focuses on cyber, artificial intelligence, and bioanalytics. Because why? Because you can't have an Eli Lilly 3 miles down the road from the institution and not have a feeder for them. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we stand firm on our roots. Barber-Scotia was a seminary school, and so we're going to make sure we have a school of divinity for Barber-Scotia. And so we now have 5 courses that we're offering at the institution. We started classes this semester for the first time officially in a long time. So we offer now an associate's in religion, a bachelor's in theology, a bachelor's in religion, a master's in business science, and a bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in entrepreneurship, information systems, marketing, human resources, and something about risk management. Those are the first 5 courses we're offering for now, because when you're going through the reaccreditation process, the more you offer, the more infrastructure you have to have. Yeah. And so we don't have that infrastructure yet. And so my job is just to get us across the finish line for the accreditation process, which our packet will be submitted in October of this year. It takes about 15 to 18 months while the packet is submitted. But in that process, I am fully confident that once our packet is submitted in the fall of 2026, or either at the beginning or at the end, we're going to be fully accredited as an institution again. Wow. That's the future. Yes, sir.
Okay, as far as students coming in and affording college, do you have to be accredited, or do you have to be on the path towards accreditation for students to receive Pell Grants, loans, such like that?
Great question. So in the beginning, yes, you have to be accredited. You have to be accredited to get to get federal financial aid. So I started thinking about that. And how do you create a model of the future, right? Because the traditional piece is you go into the classroom, right? And we know that technology is in such a way now that you can do both. And I think what is exciting about Barber-Scotia is that we're going to create a new hybrid model that's going to allow for the student that really needs to be in the classroom, we're going to be able to provide that. And the student that is just fine with being in the dorm room or being at home and not being able to have to come all the way to Concord, they'll be able to plug in. This is what I see. The teacher, the instructor, in a classroom, all monitors. Nothing but monitors, and on those monitors are nothing but the faces of their students. That's the kind of classroom that we want to build for the institution. And then you have a few desks for those who really got to come in, because I need to be able to lean in and hear the teacher and really try to get it, because we know that those students exist. But the future that I see is the wall full of monitors of students that will be plugging in. But during the accreditation process, when the application is submitted, the way that it works is you submit the application. Once they receive it, they'll come and do their first site visit to make sure that we're real. you know, we're a real school, because you know, you got people who be like, you know, they don't know no school at all, trying to get accredited. They're gonna come and they're gonna see if we're a real school. And if we meet all of the things that's on the check mark, we will then be, go to a category called, basically provisional, right? We'll be provisionally, it's not called, it's called something else, but I'm just gonna use the word provisional for now. I should know this by now, but I got too much in my head. Where we will then be able to get access to federal financial aid, even though we're not fully accredited yet. Because once you're in the, that category, now we move to what's called self-study. And in the self-study process, we're doing what we're doing, and we're making sure that the systems that we put in place is real, and we're documenting it, and then we're sending it to them. And then at the end, they'll show back up again and make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And if we meet the standards, then they stamp it for, you guys are good to go. And so that's how the process works. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I think somebody over here was asking, how do these current 5 students afford to be students if they don't have access?
Sure. So what we decided to do, because this is how I'm getting ready to change the game, as I love to say, to attend Barber-Scotia, because I'm looking at the formula now of the cost of delivering education to students, right? The traditional sense, it is labor intensive and it is resource intensive, having them on campus, having them under dorms, having them, well, right now these students they're not there, everything's online, right? So to attend Barber-Scotia, starting in the fall, is, we have 5 that's with us now, but we have a pool of applications that is, you know, we are very excited about for the fall. But to attend Barber-Scotia is $2,500 a semester. That's gonna be the future. Now what does that mean? That means that what I'm building is a model where online instruction will be the order of the day. And for those that will come on campus, those who will come on campus, they will have the same price point. But as I shared and I showed as I shared with the Board of Trustees, in 5 years, if this goes right, and I believe that it will, because you would have created a true affordable model, we'll end up having 500-600 students on campus, maybe up to close to 1,000, but we'll have 5,000 to 10,000 online. The 10,000 online is what will subsidize the ones that are in person, because we'll never go past 1,000. You know, you have to have a cutoff point for what you will have on campus. And then you build the model. So when you think about the Walden universities and the Southern New Hampshire State universities, Walden University is a great example. Walden has over 65,000 students worldwide. The majority of them are black students. They are really the largest HBCU in the country, in the world. Walden University has 1 building in Maryland. That's basically their administration building, where they manage everything for that institution. All of the instruction is online. And what I'm creating is a hybrid model, because in the black culture, historically black colleges love to get together. The students want to get together, we have a great time, especially during homecoming, all that great stuff like that. So I have to create that model. But knowing that there will be someone who lives out of Missouri that will not ever want to come to Concord, but they want to go to an HBCU, and they want to get an affordable education. Or it'll be that man or that woman who knows that they need to finish their degree so that they can get promoted, or they need to get a higher degree to get promoted. Barber-Scotia will be an option, because it's only $2,500 to go there. And that's how we're going to do it. Yes, ma'am.
Is there, are there other HBCUs that have taken your model?
Absolutely.
Or have you taken other HBCU models?
No, there is no HBCU that's doing this. And what I'm doing is absolutely revolutionary. And the reason why this is such a great opportunity is because Barber-Scotia is a blank canvas. Most presidents that enter into a presidency is entering into a culture that he or she is inheriting, that they can't really change, because you have folks that just can't imagine, what we're saying. But what I'm getting ready to do is help reimagine what it is and help these HBCUs in such a way, and I'll give you an example. Johnson C. Smith. You know, in our history, we were besties. You know, and you know, ironically, the new president, because I came in July, the new president came in, she came in August, and she and I have really gotten to a place where we understand that building this relationship is going to be important for both our futures. What I'm willing to offer them is for them to reimagine instruction to their students. When you think about paying an instructor, you know, a decent salary, it could be very resource intensive for an institution. But imagine that, you know, you have an instructor who's teaching cybersecurity. And imagine if Johnson C. Smith, Barber-Scotia College, and Livingstone College have the same cyber curriculum.
Oh.
Right? Imagine the wall that I tell you that I'm talking about, where the instructor comes in and all those students are students from the various institutions. But now we split the cost of that instructor's salary. So now instead of having to pay that instructor 90, I'm only have to pay them 30. But that instructor still walks into a situation where they're helping all these individuals. So my hope is that sharing resources will be the order of the day for the institutions, because when you add up all of our students right now, it's not even 2,000 students. Because they're operating off of the old model where they have to get them on campus. And when you're a private institution, it is very hard to change the old model, because you know you got to make sure the grass is cut. You got the maintenance of the buildings that are old. You have an alumni base that probably don't give back the way that they should. Because think about it. Most of the individuals who went to college at black institutions in the early 1900s, and most of them even till today, most of them, you know, go into professions that don't allow for them to write big checks. And so when you think about the initial folks that went to college, teaching, ministry, you know, or was in the trades, right? Those individuals weren't able to write huge business checks. You know, they weren't corporate men, because you think about the racism you had to deal with to try to build yourself up as a leader in that regard. And so I wasn't able to give back to my institution. So here you go in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, you have these dilapidated buildings because the end of the generation that came before you wasn't able to give the resources to build it up. You know, and so, you know, again, I went to East Carolina undergrad, and then I went to Brown for my master's, and then I went to William & Mary for my law degree. These institutions, especially William & Mary, there's a different kind of money there. I mean, we've been there since 1693. And so when you think about the money that has been in wills that have been written, you know, the inheritance that they have received is far beyond. And so I sit on our Alumni Association Board of Directors, and to see the flow of resources that come through there from the alumni, that's generational. And the thing is, I'm not mad at them, because that's, you know, they only know what they know. HBCUs haven't had an opportunity to experience that until now, but the challenge is we have so much investment that is needed to catch up. That's why Barber-Scotia is so important to the HBCU model, because today, I'll share this with you guys. Today, I had a donor who called me and said, I will pay for the first 50 students, I will pay their tuition for the next 4 years.
Oh.
So he's going to pay $2,500 for the next 4 years, each semester, for the first 50 students that we bring in. So what does that mean? So what does that mean for? So now what I can do is I can tell a student, if you start with us and you end, we'll be accredited. And oh yeah, by the way, when you walk across the stage, you'll be debt free. That's how I'm going to change the game in the very beginning, right? I had a funeral company call me yesterday. He said, "Hey, I want to, you know, I don't know how, I don't even know how we got to the 50. First, it was just, you know, a funeral company called me. He said, "I want to sponsor a student." 4 years. I said, oh, great. Then another company called and said the same thing, so this all happened within 24 hours. And then today, the big call came, and I don't even know how he got my number. But he was like, I've just been watching you on the news. He said, and I'm touched, and he gave this whole spiel, and I didn't know what he was going to say at the end. He said, and he came by, well, he called and he came by. He brought his assistant with him, and he shook my hand. He made the assistant, he said, I didn't bring any paperwork for this. He said, so take a picture of us shaking hands, and I'm going to send this to you. And this
Way
is
to do
our,
business.
he said, we're going to use this, so of course, until I get the check.
Yeah.
But it was amazing to hear what he said today, because he believed, because I shared with him the whole vision of that we want to transform this campus into being a place where we position our future students to not only the foundation will always be, last week, this denomination came by, I took them on a tour, and they said they need a school to send all their ministers through, because that's important for them. They don't have degrees. Some of them have degrees. Some, some folks get some folks get these church degrees. You'd be like side of the road, Baptist theology school. So they said we need a formal school to send our folks through. And he was like, we want Barber-Scotia to be that school. So that's what I mean by the application pool looks very interesting for us in the fall. So they're bringing their bishop conference here, which is their bishop. They have about 400 bishops in their code, whatever. And they're coming, they're going to do their conference at Barber-Scotia. And they are planning on using Barber-Scotia as the institution to train for their ministers to get formal degrees. So yes.
I hope that you budget to pay the teachers, the professors, to accommodate a class load
Of course, yeah. So.
that is greatly increased from a classroom size.
Oh, absolutely. And to your point, that's why, as we look at the new model that we're trying to create. So right now, all the instructors have said, this is for now because we don't have the resources, but they've been so amazing. They were like, they're all volunteers for the first year. I've asked them, give me the first year. Give me the first year, and they all have. Everyone that I've hired takes no salary. But they act as if though they are working 40 hours. I mean, now granted, I get emails at all kind of crazy hours of the day. When I get into the office, like, oh Lord, my CFO just sent this to me at 1:13 in the morning. But they play no games because they understand what we're trying to accomplish. I can't do this by myself. And so you got to have people who are so committed and understand that this mission is so much bigger than themselves, because some of them have come from nowhere. I met a surgeon who's an alumnus. He's retired now. He sent us a check to the school, which I was so grateful for. He said, and this was his word, he said, I'm from nowhere, North Carolina. He said, Barber-Scotia was the only school that gave me an opportunity. He said, and I am a retired surgeon because I got my biology degree from Barber-Scotia College. And I've heard that so many times from so many individuals, from so many alumni. How can I not step into the gap and help to transform this institution and be a part of what, to change the narrative of who we were, but know what we can be? How could you not do that? Yes, ma'am.
Got two things. One, I had to step out, so I don't know if I missed this, but if not, would you talk about Barber-Scotia Rising?
Yes.
And also, I understand that the accreditation accomplishment is essential, critical, do or die. What can those of us who care about this institution do to contribute to the success of that? What do you need from someone like me to hit the accreditation 16
Sure.
points?
So a couple of things. So number one, Barber-Scotia Rising. So I got a model that I kind of followed. So there's a college in Atlanta called Morris Brown, right? Morris Brown. I like to tell her, we're the new Morris Brown. Morris Brown, of course, was like Barber-Scotia. They lost their accreditation almost over 20 years ago. And Dr. Kevin James, basically brought it back, and they got the accreditation about a year ago. So it's possible. So that's one thing. So if it can be done once, it can be done again. I'm a scientist at the core, so all you gotta do is keep on replicating that process. And so I know that it was possible. So their moniker was the hard reset. That's what he would say. That's what he called his campaign, the hard reset. So of course, when I took the job, I was like, okay, what could we do for Barber-Scotia? So when I talked to the board Chairwoman Pinckney, who was just an amazing soul, she said, we're like a phoenix that can rise if we just, we're a diamond in the rough. We're like a phoenix that can rise if we just have the right, strategy. I was like, rise. And of course, I thought about, I took it very personal. I thought about just, my life. And when you think about the journey of all of our lives, and you have these points where you just like, man, am I going to get through? Am I going to make it? Is this, I'm at my lowest. And for whatever reason, God steps in, says, I'm not done with you yet. So rise, my son, and let's go. And I see this as the same type of journey. And so Barber-Scotia Rising popped into my head, and it just became an amazing campaign. In 7 months, we have doubled what we raised in the fiscal year before in our Rising campaign. Because we did it in small doses, right? Barber-Scotia was 156 years old. I just asked the folks to give us $156. And then there were some donors that said, well, I'm gonna give you $1,150. Okay, sure, okay. And it just kept on going, but when like today, I just mailed out, and it's been a long time coming, but I feel so bad, but it's just so, at the end of the day, it's just me, at the school, me and my grounds guy who I love so much. Today I mailed out almost 600 thank you cards from donors. 600 in the 7 months that I've been here. So, I should be hitting their mailboxes next week. But I was excited about it because, there was a time when we couldn't even afford to do that, right? And to be able to do that, just like we've had some vandalism over the last couple of weeks, which I, was really upset about. But, all those windows have been replaced, except for the ones at the student union, which that's going to cost us, it's like $30,000 to do that. But it's okay, we boarded it up and it looks real good, and we painted it, and it looks really good. It looks like, actually, it's supposed to be a part of the student union, but that's the future of us getting that squared away. I'm not going to spend $30,000 because I need it right now, because I got to wait for the letter to come back because right now we're in a back and forth with the city, right? So we owe the city $384,000, right? And so the city sent their demand letter, say, hey, give us our $384,000, or here goes all the land we want from you, all right? So now we have to, so of course we countered, and so now we have to wait for their counter back, and we'll see what they say. But we're encouraged because there's a different mood on the campus today. Chairwoman, she's there today because, of course, we have our Founders Day program tomorrow. So we're going to start off at 9:30 in the morning with locking arms around the quad and praying for the college. So that's at 9:30. So whoever shows up, we're going to pray for Barber-Scotia, because I do believe in prayer. And then at 10 o'clock, the Founders Day program starts. It's only going to be about an hour. So she was there, so she came up to my office. She said, the campus, this looks really good. President Rey. And I was like, well, we'll be out here, picking up the limbs. We have folks out there cutting grass, and but I'm always excited because we can do it, because there was a time when we couldn't do it. So in Faith Hall, we're trying to bring Faith Hall back online so that it can be utilized for dorm use, whether it's for summer camps. There's been some folks that have reached out and said, hey, we'd like to, use your campus for summer camps. Do you have any place for beds? And I'm like, oh, I do. I don't have my certificate of occupancy yet. But the thing that was keeping us from doing that got completed yesterday. Now, when I took the job 7 months ago, you know, the estimate was $15,000 to fix this huge valve that we have to fix in Faith Hall. And you couldn't see that, but we were able to do that, So the little things like that when you have support, it allows for you to do that. So the Barber-Scotia Rising campaign has allowed for us to not only do that, and your other part of your question when you say, well, what can you do as we get on the road to accreditation is number one, if there are individuals who are retired instructors, that'd be great if they can, teach classes online. I need instructors, right? Depending on what their background is, and we'll go through all of that. But the more the merrier, especially if they have terminal degrees. Having folks to come and, just volunteer at the school. Sometimes I had to get. Now I hate it in my spirit that I had to spend all this money to get the cards printed, because at first I was like, I was going to handwrite them. I was like, oh, I can't do that. And then, I sent it to Minuteman Press, and so they were like, wait, would you like us to put the card in the envelope and, lick the, I was like, but it was only me. So I was like, at that point I said, yes, But now moving forward, everybody but now we're on top of it. But it would be great to have folks to volunteer, 2-3 times a week, if, once a week or whatever, say, hey, do you have any thank you cards that you want to be able to write on it? Because I'm not going to do that anymore. But I needed to get that bulk out to say thank you, because I was hearing folks like, we send us some money, you need to say thank you. I want them to know I am grateful, but it's just so much that's happening every single day. And so to that point, folks volunteering. This upcoming Saturday, next Saturday, there's a group of men who are coming with their weed whackers and their, because we have a company that cuts our grass, right? That's all they do. They cut the grass, right? But, I need the edge up. And the edging is what makes it look pretty, and, and blowing in and all. So these guys are coming to do that for us, to help pick up limbs and things of that nature. So that's the kind of stuff. And, oh yeah, by the way, the county, our challenge with the county is that the county is now challenging our tax exempt status. Now, we've been tax exempt for 157 years, but they're saying, well, you're not using these buildings for the purpose of what they're supposed to be. So we need to, potentially start charging you taxes on the property of the college. So of course you all have received your evaluation for 2024. So we appeal their decision. It's at the state level now. We're waiting for, we have a hearing in April. Our prayer is that we will be successful in that. If we don't, we have to pay them $137,000 for our taxes from 2023. And then who knows what it'll be for 2024, right? Now, for every building that comes online, we can take it off of that, but that's going to take some time, right? So now we have to be creative in what that looks like. So, because it has to be used for education purposes. So, if you guys would like to start having education classes at Barber-Scotia College, we can use, even if it's once a week, if you need to use our buildings, so we can say that, hey, this building is being used for educational purposes. Let me take that picture real quick. Post that on, so I can be honest and say this campus is being used for educational purposes. That would be great. I don't care if it's one day a week, to show up and to do a class, to shoot a class. It can be, something educational could be happening on the campus. I have this gentleman called Dr. Kroon. He's an amazing soul. So he has been, finding all this wildlife and taking the pictures of. So we have iNaturalist. We have an account on this called iNaturalist. So Barber-Scotia has a page on there, has an account on there, and he's been capturing this falcon and all these weird things that are on our campus. So what our hope is that he can do some educational classes, taking folks around. This hydranium here is the whatever. But we have to be creative until we can get to where we need to get to. That's going to take a team effort. And so I welcome, if you know of anyone or any organization that just needs to have a place to meet, that's doing something educational, I can say, hey, so the seniors that live in, that lives in the county, that are alumni, are going to start taking a Barber-Scotia class, just to, and they're gonna show up and do it, and we're gonna do it in the building, we're gonna do it in all the buildings, I gotta move everybody around, to be like, this building is being used for educational purposes this weekend, or whatever, but those are the things that I have to do until I get to where we need to get to.
Can it be Christian education?
Absolutely, it's education.
Okay.
It's an education class, it's an education class.
How much property is the school owns?
We own close to 30 acres.
30 acres?
Close to
Okay.
30 acres. And this right here is just what's contiguous, right? So everything that I've shown, that's what the future looks like, we own that. But
Where's
then we
Corbin? I'm sorry.
That's the Corbin is
Corbin.
back here.
Okay,
Corbin is back here.
thank you.
But then we have properties that's out in the county, folks who have passed away, that were Barber-Scotia grads, that left their property to us. And of course, the county was like, oh, those aren't used for educational purposes. Judge, I'm like, yeah! So I'm thinking to myself, I wanted to tell the tax assessor, I'm like, all the tax assessors before you, and you're the one who shows up in this era of our life that wants to, I'll leave, but, it's okay. We'll get, I'll start growing lettuce on there if I have to. Don't worry, we'll figure it out, right? But I just need, that's how the community can help. And that sends a message that, not only do you believe in what an institution like Barber-Scotia was, but what it can be. And that's how it works. And so I refuse to save this college by myself. And I mean that. And so that means it's everyone's responsibility, because why? That could be a place where Barber-Scotia campus could be a place for summer camps for all kind of kids. You think about this county and what it could be, and it used to be. I have someone who reached out to me. They want to invest in helping to bring the pool back up. So yes, absolutely. Pool is still has water in it. It's very fun. It just needs to be cleaned, and but I got to get the roof has to be repainted. It has to be I need to pull the water out, make sure that scrub out the tiles and make it all pretty again, and then treat the water and fill it back up. So it can be used for AAU purposes, and get on the AAU circuit, and high school swim circuit. So all of this stuff is possible. It's just I just need time. And so what I have is these other forces: the city, the county, federales, federales, I gotta, so I have all kind of little points. I'm meeting with the Secretary of Education, because we still have a $1.4 million debt that we owe to the federal government from, student loan situations. But I'm very confident we're gonna be able to get that forgiven. I just gotta meet with the Secretary, which I'm gonna meet with him next week.
You're really sparking some cool ideas, and I can feel the energy in the room. But
Yeah.
I also heard at your office that one of your little revenue streams is renting your facilities.
Yes.
Tell me what buildings and facilities are up to
Rentable.
standard and.
Right. So of course the chapel. Our chapel is, let me tell you, the chapel is that's the moneymaker over there, buddy. We, weddings, funerals, concerts. So the chapel has been very, very popular. The gym is also utilized. The only challenge with the gym is that the HVAC system doesn't work because someone got up on the roof, and of course, they steal the copper and the coils and all kind of, of course, these things I never knew about until I became the president of the college. But the gym is, the gym is utilized. There's the library. There's another building that we can use because there are classrooms, because that's where we'll be doing the classes in. We'll be in the library. We've converted some of the rooms. But Lord knows, I got another call from another granting organization that if we, they basically will let me know, all you have to do is apply President Rey, and we're going to get you squared away. But if we get that grant, we get the full grant, I will be able to use that dollars to actually renovate the entire library so that it can, because there are still parts, leaks and little things that need to be. So I will have the resources to bring in a contractor to seal the building, right? And then be able to, paint it and make it look really nice and frou-frou. But right now, it can actually be used as a classroom because we have our certificate of occupancy for it. My next focus now is to get a certificate of occupancy for Faith Hall, and then eventually the big behemoth, which is the student union, which will be the game changer.
Where is that?
You know, the student union is right here, the Mabel Parker McLean Student Union. So that's, you know, that's where we have the kitchen and it was, you know, the cafeteria, and then you got classrooms, and you have all kind of other. But of course, I need to find someone who is going to bless me, because I need all of that kitchen equipment thrown away. It's done. I mean, it's not, you know, and, you know, I need all kind of new, you know, so I need a whole new situation. But that right there, that could be a retreat for companies. I mean, you got, like I said, classrooms. You can have, you know, my hope is that eventually the 1867 gala will be back there instead of having to rent out, you know, hotel space. I got a whole free facility I can use on my campus. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done because it was built in the 1870s. Now, of course, you know, we can either renovate it and go up with it, or, you know, it has reached its natural use life. Turn it on to build a brand new Mabel Parker McLean, you know, Mabel McLean, right? Yes, Mabel McLean. Mabel was the first woman that was president of Barber-Scotia College. Yeah, she was the first female president. So before we go, I brought a couple of things for y'all to take a look at, you know, just so you guys can see.
Show and tell.
Yeah, a little show and tell, because I didn't have a whatchamacallit. But, you know, but I did bring up a picture of course, Luke Dorland, Luke Dorland is that's the founder, you know, little white guy.
It's younger than I would have thought.
I've seen him many
All
times.
Presbyterians were severe back then.
Yeah.
Many of them still are.
And then the first, so he was the first president. Then the sixth president
He
was
does look like a
Dr.
grumpy old
Kozar,
man.
you know, who was the
Oh,
first
he
black.
is.
Not only he was the first black president of the college, he was number 6. So that was number 6. Yeah?
I think doesn't look nearly
Kozar.
as down up close as he did from afar.
This is Mabel P. McLean. She was the first woman, and she was just, I mean, her name, again,
Yeah.
she's all over the college. I mean, she was
Oh,
a
this is
true institution,
Kozar.
At least she's smiling.
Yeah, I know, right? And then, of course, this is some of the early pictures of some of the women that
Yes,
attended.
I actually stayed in Grace Hall.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow. Jeez.
yes, it was an RN.
Really?
Yes.
So there's a chapel, right, that's in Faith Hall. The chapel was built in the 1890s, and it's a part of Faith Hall. And unbelievable, beautiful, beautiful,
It's
beautiful.
amazing.
I just read a wonderful, I can't
Say it again.
quite say the name of it. I think it was called First Ladies. And it was Eleanor Roosevelt and Mary McLeod Bethune.
Yes,
And
yes.
I knew her just kind of by name, but what she did with President Roosevelt was
Oh, yeah,
just
yeah,
astounding.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Philip Randolph, and yes,
Yeah, she took
Yeah.
no prisoners. I mean,
Oh, power.
she was committed. She was absolutely committed.
Barber-Scotia College.
So this is a picture of Felicia Rashad. That's in Faith Hall.
Okay,
That's-
I've been in there years ago.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's Faith
I thought I
Hall.
recognized it.
oh gosh.
Yeah.
What year were y'all at,
What year?
I started at Barber-Scotia in the year 2000 and was there all the way up until 2004.
Wow.
a 4-year student, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, look at them, the ladies. Ladies on the lawn.
This is really nice. So I saw a picture. It's in one of the books. I saw this picture of how in Graves Hall used to be the library, and then at the bottom, and then in the administration building, Kozar Hall became the library, and then they eventually built the other library. So there's a picture. There's a picture of all of the ladies passing the books from Graves Hall to Kozar, 30,000 books. That they did this huge chain,
Yeah.
you know, from Graves Hall all the way to the administration building. And so Graves Hall, of course, is the one with the hole in the building, you know, all
Not
the
even
way.
labeled.
And it was just amazing, just amazing. to see that picture, I'm like, wow. So, I thought I'd bring a couple of
Got the
pictures.
job done, though.
They got the job done. They got the job done.
Bucket
They sure
brigade.
did. They got the job done. They got the job. Then I found like this old thing with Judge Hatchett. She was the Women History Celebration speaker. You know, Judge Hatchett. You know, she's. I don't know Judge Hatchett. Yeah, she's a.
I'm wondering if Barber-Scotia and Johnson C. Smith were kind of brother-sister schools like
They were.
Davidson and Queens.
They were. They were. I mean, literally,
That makes sense.
they're in our history books. And then on their charter, Johnson C. Smith's charter, they actually mention Barber-Scotia. Yeah, the charter, their charter.
Yeah.
So I was over there a couple of weeks ago, and this, older gentleman just gave this whole. He was like, Barber-Scotia.
Oh, yeah. And-
He was so excited. He was like,
they
I
are.
saw a picture of the charter.
Look at this.
Well,
It's like, wow.
They all
So,
look so uniform.
just
Nowadays, not so much. More diversity in dress.
So- Good times at Barber-Scotia College. Good times at Barber-Scotia College.
And more to come.
Yeah.
I was
More to
just gonna
come.
say that. I was just gonna
And more to come, more to come.
I think you'll have to come back next year when we do this, so we see what progress is.
Yes.
made.
Wouldn't that be
Absolutely.
great?
I mean, really.
Is that the chapel down at that end next to that?
So this was one of the churches, this was the church that Luke Dorland built, here on the corner, which we don't own anymore, which is so weird. We don't own it anymore, but we. Yeah, so.
You know, with.
So ladies and gentlemen, that is my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. I hope and pray that you will, make your way over to the campus at some point. And, most of the time you'll see me in the ambulance around there. But I hope that you will come. My goal is to continue to have programs on the campus that will tell the story of of our school and where we're going. And I think sometime this summer they're supposed to have my official inauguration as president. So that's going to be, I guess they say it's a big deal. So that'll be a big deal. So I will encourage you to go to our website, and at the very bottom there's this little, subscribe, so you can just get our get what we have going on. I don't send out a lot of emails, but when we do, at least you know what we have going on, and keep up with us. Right now we're doing our mascot is the saber-toothed tiger. So we're getting ready to do a refresh of our saber tooth. So we're gonna have a refresh. So it's gonna be a whole community. We have all these artists that's redoing it, and then we're gonna send it out and have everybody vote on it. And then the top three will present to the board of trustees, and then let them pull it together. Let them do their thing. And then at the 1867 gala, which is in April, we'll unveil what our new saber looks like for the college as we begin our branding. Just little things like that will make all the difference. And besides, I need a new vector file because I don't have a file for the current saber. So it's like, good opportunity to get a new one because I don't have a vector file for the old one.
The most recent PR, meaning the local newspaper, I'm new to the town, so it since your arrival has been favorable, I would say. So,
I've heard that a few times, yes. Yeah, we're glad for that, and we will continue to tell the good news. Because, there's a lot of great opportunities, and, and why not wake up and be a part of history? Why not? And that's all of us, So that means all of us can do something, and
Well, thank you, President Rey, for being here, and I'm inspired and encouraged and very impressed with the vision. I knew you had a vision, but I didn't know it was so fresh and new and creative and innovative.
this has
And-
been such a hole in the community, and I'm so hopeful and want you to just fill that
Yes.
hole.
thank you.
And I want us to be a part of it. And
Yes.
I've only been in Concord for a couple of years. I moved here a couple of years ago, but I just have a heart for the school and its history, and it's part of my new town.
That's right.
And I want to be part of helping it
You don't wanna see
renew.
Absolutely. Thank you. As I said, I cannot do it and I will not do it by myself. And And if you all allow me to do that, then shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on all of you, you know,
It's
so,
not gonna happen.
and I'll leave it at that. All right, well,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Good night, good night.